Thanks for watching. My name's Glen Morgan, and this is We the Govern. So the reason why I'm doing today's video is mainly because I had filed a video, or did a video last week about an ethics complaint that I had filed against here, Senator Emily Alvarado from the 34th Ledge District, and she was very upset about it. I know she was crying on the Senate floor in the wings, and it was a big deal, got a little bit of media attention. And I did the video last week just so that I could explain why I filed that complaint, what it was. But one of the comments from many of you out there that you made was that it wasn't as clear to you what exactly was the ethical violation for her employer. It was fairly apparent why she committed the ethics violation right here. But the question is, what did she do and what did her employer do how they benefited from the efforts that she made? And it really started out, of course, I had this article that came out in the Center Square that got republished and sent all over the country just about her ethics violations and what she did with that rent control bill. This is what my complaint looked like originally. And in the complaint, I was pretty specific on the two Washington state ethics laws that she violated, basically getting compensation for official duties, and which means you were basically being paid specifically by somebody else, her employer, for things that were going to benefit them, and ultimately that included activities that were incompatible with the public duties that she's supposed to have in representing the taxpayers of West Seattle in this case. So, of course, the big thing was that, and I didn't really get into this in last week's video, so I thought I would dig into it a little bit more here and explain this in more detail, that one of the things that Senator Alvarado did here is in her rent control bill, this is her big push here, she's prime sponsor, she's driving this thing home, and it specifically and explicitly exempts her employer, who basically pays her the big bucks, from any rent control rules that might be imposed on them, and instead imposes it exclusively on their competition, which in the rest of the world everybody would realize was clearly a conflict of interest, very dishonest, and something that very corrupt people do. Now, if you'll notice, when I had also posted last week, she makes a ton of money. It's Enterprise Community Partners, that's who employs her, multi-billion-dollar, low-income, nonprofit, subsidized housing group. They seem to have lots of money rolling around out there to pay her hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in order to go in and help them push bills like the rent control bill that hurts their competition and ensures they just get a lot more money. Because after all, in the modern world of political nonprofits, it pays huge to be a nonprofit. In fact, it's almost impossible to see why anybody thinks these guys are nonprofits, because they are raking in the big bucks and ensuring that they can pay their top leadership cadre just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, oftentimes millions of dollars, to run a quote-unquote nonprofit. I mean, it's a big bonus. Of course, conveniently, I will also point out that I didn't get into this detail last week, but the Washington Department of Commerce here has granted over $2.8 million over the last 4 years since Senator Alvarado was either in the legislature or, and this continues now, that she's in the Senate, State Senate, and conveniently this so-called nonprofit happens to get an extra $2.8 million, and I'm sure that's just a convenient bonus that the Department of Commerce grants that are sent to her that she gets. I will link to the spreadsheets of those grants down in the video description below if you want to look at them specifically, but it's a lot of money, even in the nonprofit world. But let me break this down very specifically, point by point, to make it more clear what's unethical about Senator Alvarado's behavior here. So number one, just point out she gets elected to the legislature. Now that may be a tragedy, but that by itself is not an unethical event. The challenge then is once she gets in there, she gets immediately hired by Community Enterprise Partners, a multi-billion-dollar, low-income, subsidized kind of housing operation. Everybody's in on the grift, and there's nothing that convinces government to give you more money than pretending to actually help low-income people with housing after you've destroyed affordable housing in the private sector. So once she gets in there, conveniently, her employer gets an extra bonus $2.8 million in commerce grants spread over a number of years. And every year it just keeps increasing. They keep getting more. I am sure that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that one of their primary employees happens to work in the legislature and that they influence the budget under which the Department of Commerce operates. I am sure that they are not connected. On top of that, then, of course, she's pushing this rent control bill. Now, regardless of the obvious policy problems with rent control and the fact that it has failed every single time in human history it's ever been used, and it always drives up the cost of rent, and it always pushes down the supply of rental units, which, of course, makes it very difficult for low-income or anybody to find any housing. She's done this before. I mean, she tried to push this a few years ago. That bill failed, and she was back again this year, making much better progress. And of course, this is designed specifically and explicitly to punish the competitors of her employer. And just to add a little extra bonus to this, she makes sure that her employer is specifically exempted from rent control rules because, as the piece of legislation both the House and Senate says, it doesn't apply to entities that receive grants or for low-income housing or doing anything else that, of course, Enterprise Community Partners does. So it's just perfect. It takes out all their competition, exempts themselves from it, because it's such an awesome program that exempting yourself is the only way that it can actually be offered. And of course, what could possibly be wrong with this? And I'm sure that's what Senator Emily Alvarado here actually thinks, as she's pushing just a ridiculous and destructive policy proposal through Olympia. Listen, I know it's not the only one. There's plenty of bad policies out there, but that's what's going on with this one. Now, when I go through this and I provide some of those documents, and I'll link to some down below, if you want to be involved in exposing more of your politicians or bureaucrats who are probably doing things the same or probably even worse than Senator Alvarado out there, feel free to come by and do one of our Doge training classes, Doge Washington training classes. We're going to be doing them all over Washington State. We've already started doing them here a few weeks ago. We've got a couple going this week, and just as each week goes by, we'll be doing more and more. If you live anywhere in Washington State, one of these training classes is going to be near you, and this is your opportunity to learn how to do the research and work with other teams of people to go out there and actually start to expose what's going on in local government. Because you can't just depend on the people in government to do the right thing. That's unrealistic and totally counter to, frankly, all evidence that we've seen as with the type of people that we have in government, both in the bureaucracy and in the political class. So it's up to us to expose the truth. It is our tax dollars that they're squandering every day they go to work. So it's nice if we could just start to hold them accountable and start exposing the truth about exactly how they're wasting it. And perhaps, as an outcome, we could get things basically going just a little bit more honest, maybe a little bit better, and certainly less wasteful than it is today. So the only way to do that, though, you do have to show up. It's the only way to make anything happen. So show up at one of these classes. I look forward to seeing you there, because the future belongs to those who show up.